All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're cracking open one of North Africa's most exciting, but also one of its most complex medical markets, Algeria. Now, this is especially interesting for Turkish entrepreneurs who already share some deep historical ties to the region. But for anyone, really, understanding the unique mix of rules, culture, and strategy, well, that's the absolute key to success. So let's get into this roadmap. First things first, let's get our bearings. You have to understand, Algeria isn't just the biggest country in Africa by size. Its location is everything. It's perfectly positioned in the Mediterranean, acting as this critical bridge between Europe and the rest of the African continent. And that strategic spot is really the foundation of its massive potential. So what does that potential look like in actual dollars? Well, the Algerian medical device market is on track to hit a whopping 1.68 billion US dollars by 2029. I mean, that's not just growth, that's a huge opportunity just sitting there, waiting for the right people to come along. To help you navigate this, we've broken it all down into 5 key steps. We're going to start with the opportunity itself, then walk through the tough regulatory stuff, get into the cultural side of things, and then finish up with what I think is the most important long-term play, localization. Okay, so part 1, the opportunity. We're talking about a market that serves 45 million people. The whole health system is modernizing, and there's a growing hunger for top-quality care. But the real question you need to ask is, where do they actually buy all their medical gear? The market really has 2 different engines running at the same time. On one side, you've got the public sector. It's almost entirely run by the Central Hospital Pharmacy, or PCH. This is where you see these huge government tenders for the state hospitals. But then, on the other side, you have this really dynamic and quickly growing private sector, private clinics, diagnostic centers, and they're all hungry for the latest and greatest high-tech equipment. You absolutely need a different strategy for each one. Now let's talk about what's often the single biggest hurdle for anyone new to the market, the regulations. I know it can look pretty intimidating, but I want you to think of it like a gauntlet. A tough one, sure, but one with a very clear path through it. Let's walk that path together, step by step. And standing right at the gate of that gauntlet is the ANPP, the National Agency for Pharmaceutical Products. They're the gatekeepers. They were set up in 2018, and they are the one and only authority for approving every medical device in the country. Seriously, every single product, no exceptions, has to get their stamp of approval to even enter the market. So the key here is just understanding their process. It's called homologation. That's the official word for product approval. And it really boils down to 5 main steps. First, you classify your device's risk level. Second, you put together this incredibly detailed technical file, including things like your CE certificate. Third, and this is a big one, it's non-negotiable, every single document has to be professionally translated into French or Arabic. Fourth, the NIMP reviews everything and might even send your product for lab testing. And finally, a committee sets the maximum price you can sell it for. Look, it's a marathon, not a sprint, so you've got to be prepared for that. You know, what's so fascinating about this is how the fee structure itself tells you everything you need to know about the government strategy. Check it out. Registering a device you import costs 300,000 dinar, but if you make that same device inside Algeria, the fee plummets by 2/3, down to just 100,000 dinar. This just lays it all out, right? It's a massive financial incentive to move from just being an exporter to actually producing locally. Let's really drill down on that language barrier for a second, because this is one of the trickiest day-to-day challenges. A single little mistake, just one inaccuracy in a translation, can get your application flat out rejected and set you back for months. That's why you have to see professional, specialized translation not as a cost, but as a critical investment. And here's a tip to the future. While French is the language of business today, the government is actively shifting medical education over to English. That's a huge sign of where things are heading. Okay, let's pivot. We've talked about the technical stuff, now let's get into the human side of things. Because honestly, in Algeria, you could have the best product in the world and a perfect application, but if you don't get the culture, you're not going to get anywhere. This is all about finding the right local partner, and it all starts with one simple idea: trust. It's the only currency that truly matters. This one phrase just says it all, doesn't it? You're not there just to sign a deal. You're there to build a real, lasting relationship. The business contract? That's the result of the relationship, not the goal of your first or second or even your third meeting. So, what are these unwritten rules? First, sharaf, which means honor. You never, ever criticize or embarrass a partner in public. Protecting their reputation is everything. Second, you have to respect the hierarchy. Decisions come from the top, so you need to be patient and show respect to your elders and superiors. Third,
business is personal. Don't be surprised if you spend a lot of time talking about family and life before you ever mention business. That's how trust is built. And finally, understand that the management style can feel a bit paternalistic. Managers often take a personal interest in their employees' well-being.
All right, so how does all this cultural insight actually play out when you're sitting at the table? Let's talk about the practical side of things, how you communicate, negotiate, and actually close a deal. Honestly, the difference is night and day. A typical Western style is direct, it's fast, it's all about getting to the bottom line quickly. The Algerian style, it's patient, it's methodical, it's all about the relationship. Haggling isn't just common, it's an expected part of the process. And remember this, using high-pressure sales tactics or trying to force a deadline is seen as a huge insult. Patience really is your best friend in a negotiation here. Here's a quick little cheat sheet for when you have that all-important first meeting. Greetings take a while. They're not just a quick hello. They're a ritual to build connection. Always, and I mean always, use your right hand to give or receive anything. Show respect by arriving on time, but be mentally prepared to wait. Meetings will get interrupted. It's totally normal, so just go with the flow. And if you're a woman meeting a man, it's customary to nod first and wait to see if he extends his hand for a handshake. So this brings us to our final, and I'd argue most strategic part of the puzzle. Look, you can find success in Algeria just by exporting your products. But if you want long-term, sustainable success, well, that requires becoming a deeply integrated local partner. And this chart shows you exactly why. Right now, the Algerian market depends on imports for about 75% of its medical devices. From the government's perspective, that's a huge vulnerability they are actively trying to fix. But for a foreign company, you shouldn't see this as a threat. You should see it as a formal invitation. And that invitation is to make a fundamental shift in your thinking. The goal isn't just to be a supplier shipping boxes from another country. The goal is to become a strategic partner who is helping Algeria build its own healthcare manufacturing base. That right there, that's the end game. And the rewards for making that shift are huge. You get major financial breaks, like those lower registration fees we talked about. You get to bypass all the headaches of import barriers and customs delays. But most importantly, you completely change how the government and the market see you. You're no longer just a foreign supplier. You're a valued partner, working hand in hand with them to achieve their national goals. So, the path is actually pretty clear. Understand the massive opportunity, navigate the tough regulations, embrace the culture, and, most of all, plan for localization. Yes, the Algerian market is complex, it's demanding, but it's also incredibly rewarding for those who are willing to play the long game. So the real question is, are you ready to stop thinking like an exporter and start acting like a partner?